Welcome back to another Creator Collective podcast. I'm JB. This is my partner Cody, and today we have a special guest that have over a decade of experience in the film industry, aka to all our freelancers. This is the moment where you know you've truly committed and you know you're willing to do the work. You've seen the ups, you've seen the downs. Today we have Mr. Dustin. Mr. Dustin, tell us a little bit more about yourself and give us an opportunity to know who you are before we get started.
Yeah, so just a brief summary about myself. I've been doing video photo for over a decade. Have experience with brands, models, music, weddings, and still doing it. Started in high school, and yeah, it's a passion that led to making money out of it, making a living, and yeah, here I am today.
Okay, so for the people that don't know yet, how did you actually get started in video and photo?
I started in high school. I started with sports and just filmed all the sports teams at my school. Always had dreams of making a Nike commercial one day. Maybe that could still happen one day, but
Yeah.
that's how the start happened, and then it just kind of progressed over time.
Okay. And at what point did you realize this could become more than just gigs? It could be a real business.
Actually, in high school, I was, I think, 17 or 18. And because I was filming so much video content of all the games, the parents started to take notice, and then they started getting my contact number, and they wanted recruiting videos. And I think my first recruiting video I charged $50,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was just I didn't know what I was doing. And then sooner or later I started charging everyone else $200
Yeah.
because I realized the value that this video is going to get them into a college and help them with the recruiting process. So yeah, I was doing $200 a pop for a recruiting video at 17.
Okay.
17.
Okay. So it
And
sounds like it took you many years to get to where you are today, exactly.
Yes.
And how would you say that, or what's something that new creators really don't understand about really where you are till years in? Like, what's something they don't catch on to till later?
I would say like the long game, patience, communication. Those are just a couple things, but I think those go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one that stands out the most is patience, knowing that if this is truly what you want to do, you're going to stick with it. And even when things get hard, you still have to stick with it. Of course, you can find different avenues to help, pay the bills, whether it's a side job or something. But if this is truly your passion, you should stick it all the way through.
so I know in our pre-pod, we talked about the different industries that you stepped into, such as sports, music, weddings, and different things like that. What made you walk away from music videos?
The thing that made me walk away, well, I guess to go back, I just had a huge passion for doing music. And I remember there were festivals here in Texas and around town. And I got to film and photograph a lot of high profile people at a prime time in their career. 2017, I was filming people like the Chain Smokers, Lil Uzi, Lil Yachty, the Migos, like all these high profile people. And you either have to be connected with a media outlet,
Yeah.
but at the same time, sometimes they won't pay you. But people just see it on Instagram and on social media and like, oh, they got to photograph. So it does create hype, but the end goal is getting connected with an artist, touring with an artist. You won't make that much money at first, but
Mm.
they'll be able to cover your flight, your food, your stay, and then you'll probably have to take a pay cut when it comes to actually filming. But I just pivoted because I just thought, okay, let me find some things that are more stable. But there are a lot of people, a lot of great videographers and photographers that are still doing music, have done it for years, and that's a niche they stuck with, and they figured it out. And for me, I just wanted to pivot to something new.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that brings me into the next question really well, actually, because pivoting is all about business. Like if you don't see the industry and how it's going and pivot, then you're going to stay stuck doing something that's not really profiting. So in that, I would ask, why do you think that creators essentially get stuck chasing these one-off gigs that they are trying to chase the money for instead of building that stability, like you just said?
It's a really good question. I think creatives want to do these one-offs or are attracted to these one-offs because they don't want to fall into boredom, which can happen. But I can't stress enough how important retainers are, and just having that stability of knowing that, whether it be $500 or $5,000 coming in each month is something that is truly important. But I really see people focus on those one-offs, I think, a little bit earlier in their career. I mean, I
Yeah.
still do one-offs to this day, but I'm very specific on what these one-offs are. I think younger, when you're early in your career, you're doing the one-offs for the experience. When you're getting older in your career, you're doing the one-offs of, okay, is this something I really want to do? Will it help the portfolio at a high scale? And I hope that helped there.
Yeah.
No, that
Yes.
that is a very good answer because I know you're right about a lot of younger people coming in and basically chasing those one-offs because you don't want boredom. You think that that's the end game. Like if I chase enough one-offs, I'll get enough money. But that's not really how it goes.
Yeah. So we also talked on our pre-pod conversation about you having the mindset to play the long game.
Mhm.
And you said you've stood down to where, okay, I took a hit at the beginning, but then it became a long-term gain. Oh, gain. So let me ask you this. When did the idea of playing the long game really click for you?
I would have to say whenever I went to college, I got my associate's degree 2 years, and then I went to a major university, and this was around the time where I thought videography for sports was gonna be my main thing. I thought it was gonna be ESPN or Fox Sports or something, and I knew that the school wasn't for me, and I needed to take a step out of school, just basically drop out of school, and I wanted to enter the real world at 21, 22. I didn't wanna go all the way through college. I knew that I was ready, and I would say probably at that point was when I knew, okay, this is a big step, and a lot of people that, you I grew up with a mother who is an educator. So coming from that background is kind of difficult to just, tell your parent that, hey, I'm leaving school. So I would say that was a big step for me to pivot and knew in the back of my head, all right, this is something you have to see through because you left school.
So I'm assuming when you did take that pivot that you actually scheduled out or planned out what you were going to do to make the decision work. You had, like you said, you had to tell your parents and convince them in some sort of way that, hey, I got this, I'm capable, I'm accountable, I could do this. So what would you say in your own words, a day to day actually looks like when making that pivot instead of just in theory? Like what does a day to day look like when you're playing the long game?
So back then there was no plan. There were a couple brands I was working with. There were a couple artists I was working with, but the plan was, and my parents can attest to this, it was very blurry. I remember they sat me down, I was at 22 years old, and they said, "What are you doing?" And they weren't upset. They were just curious on, what's your plan? And I remember it was very blurry at the time, but if I could go back or help someone who is in a similar situation, I would reach out to all your contacts. I would completely lose the ego and reach out to anyone and everyone, and don't be annoying, but just present yourself in emails, DMs, and sooner or later you'll gain traction and really focus on your portfolio online. And over time, it's going to click. It's not going to click in the first year. You might make some decent money in the first year, but it takes a good 5 to 10 years to really catch a major stride. But some people quicker, some people quicker.
Yeah. It sounds very interesting because you have very intelligent parents that was in the education field and they constantly communicated with you and followed up with you to help you find your end goal. So how important is communication and following up compared to talent or gear?
I think communication is super important, and I think it gets overlooked a lot. I mean, even to this day, there's multiple people that I'm in contact with. I'm in contact with, receptionists at the front desk. I'm in contact
Hmm.
with estheticians. I'm in contact with models. I'm in contact with people that I worked with 2, 3 years ago. Like, hey, do we got anything coming up this weekend? Just wanted to, check in, tap in type thing. The follow up and the communication is super important. A lot of creatives will go out and do a job and they think, oh, they'll call me back or they'll do this. It's like, no, you have to remind them. We're humans, we're very forgetful. So if you can be consistent on social media of posting consistently or consistent in the emails and the follow up, like, hey, it was a pleasure working with you, remind them who you are because we're forgetful people.
Yeah.
Let them know what the project was, maybe even link the project so it refreshes their mind and I think that's super important.
Okay, so you say follow up is very important, which I totally agree because communication in all aspects of life, not just business or videography, is very important. I mean, if you can't communicate, then nobody can get to planning and action. So, could you give us an example of where a simple follow up changed everything for you? So, basically, you just simply followed up with somebody and you were able to get the gig.
Yeah, there was a situation with one of my wedding clients. I was getting hired to film uh I was getting hired to film this DJ team. They provided DJ, production, lighting, everything. And I was hired to just do that. But at the same time, there's also a wedding team that was covering the bride and groom. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to do my best for my client, but let me see, who else is around here. So the owner of the other team came over to me and what did he said, I'm enabling you. And it was kind of a weird phrase. And my client looked at me and goes, what does that mean? And in my brain, I'm just joking, like, I don't know. And then later that week, I reached out to that owner, introduced myself, let him know, hey, and then no response. And so some time goes by, sometimes goes by. And then he keeps seeing, my stories, he keeps seeing my posts, like, this guy is doing wedding after wedding after wedding. And then sooner or later, I think I reached out to him one more time, like, hey, we're always kind of at the same weddings, is there anything that can work out? And then boom, we got connected and I've been connected with him for over 3, 4 years and it made even more money with that client versus the other one.
That's dope. So you will say you know how to turn short-term relationships into long-term relationships. In other
Definitely.
words, retainers that we use in the creative industry. Give us a step by step on how you fully build those long-term relationships and to go deeper from short to long term. What's your approach?
I mean my approach really is just do the best you can. Like, meaning when you go into these projects, don't think that, like, say you have 36 jobs with one client in 1 year. Don't go into, job 25 thinking that you're
Yeah,
better than the next one, because you never know who's watching, you never know who's looking. And you go in with the effort of getting the best shots you possibly can and doing the best you can and delivering as quickly as you can. They're going to recommend you and they're going to always want you with them.
yeah,
And really, really hone in on your style. Like, try not to change it too much. Try to, like, fall into a style and keep it, because a lot of these clients that I work with, whether I'm filming and delivering the footage or filming and editing, there's a specific feel that they have whenever they're working with me. I've even handed off a video job for someone else to edit and I delivered
yeah,
it to my client and they could
yeah,
feel and see the difference.
No, that's definitely some facts because I mean, depending on how much effort you're actually putting into it, like you said, don't go into job 25 thinking, "Oh, I've got this all. I've got 36 jobs lined up with this client. I'll be good." Because then you'll X yourself out and you don't put in the most effort. You got to put in the effort in the fourth quarter that you did in the first quarter. So that's what it's always about. And let's move a little bit to fear because I think creators are stuck in a lot of fear nowadays. At least that's what I see. So why do you think they're so fearful to ask for these long-term partnerships, contracts from different clients?
So I'm probably gonna age myself here, or I'll just say my age. I'm 30,
okay.
and there's
That's
there's
not
a lot of
bad. That's not
there's
bad.
a lot of creatives, still young, but there's a lot of creatives that, well, I would say probably since 2020, everyone, is grabbing a camera. Everyone is a photographer now. I think fear will come into the equation where people think that, people are losing jobs and AI and stuff like that. But I think the real question you asked was the communication of why are people feeling. I think it's just that it's communication. The younger generation is always on their phones, in my opinion, and it's a little bit tougher for them to. Because me personally, anyone who's in my circle, I'm sending voice messages every single day. I remember during the pandemic, I was sending voice messages to very high profile artists who I admired, and I just thought they're not gonna read this. But it was the pandemic, so they actually did read it because no one had anything else to do. And some of them responded, and some of them said, "Yeah, we could probably work out some behind the scenes stuff like that." I don't know. I think probably the phone thing is
Yeah,
kind of where people are, but the phone thing, and then I think how people were raised, because I'll come around people who are younger than me and they're a little, that frontal lobe hasn't fully developed yet or whatever they call it. But
that's
they're
a funny
very,
word to say.
very personable. They're very personable people and they're very good at communication. And I think a lot of that stems from how they were raised and who they were around.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So what makes a client say, let's keep this going instead of, we're gonna move forward without you. We're done.
Whew, that's tough. Let's keep this going or move forward. I lost two main clients at the beginning of 2025, and the reason for that was they found another shooter who charged less. And I think it's really important for people, creatives that know their value, to stand by that value and don't go below that. You could go a little bit, but if you go too far, then you lose yourself and you lose the money that you used to have. And in that position, I had to put myself in a scenario of like, okay, these are two main clients. They were bringing in good money. I have to pivot and figure out who else can I reach out to in these situations, because that was nothing on me. It was more of they needed to find someone who was cheaper. But if anything, I was just getting better. Like my content was getting better. So never think that a specific season is never let a specific season define you or think that it's forever. Everything's always changing.
No, you're absolutely right on that because everybody has slow seasons, everybody has fast paced seasons, and that's why it's always good to communicate and partner up with different people because you never know who may have the gigs at the time where you're slow. So that's definitely good to look at. So I know a lot of creators are straddling the line between different stuff on what gear to get, when to communicate here, what time to show up, different things in their life. So when do you think, or how early do you think that the seed needs to be planted for a long term relationship? Like, should you do a gig with a client, jump out the gate, and then start talking about it, or how do you plant those seeds exactly, and when should it start?
So for example, I've been working with the med spa for 7 months, and that I have content going up every week, 4 posts a week, stories, all that. And there's another med spa in my area that I've worked with before, and she's seen all that content. And I remember we did it was a one-off shoot, but it was a full day. So it was a great budget. We actually have another day. It's a 2-day shoot actually on Friday. But the point that I'm making is she asked me twice on that shoot, hey, what is that other med spa doing? And I need you to send me packages because I want to do the same thing. And so I have to think to myself, I've known this client for a while and she's interested because I've showed the world all this content, all this value. And I think today, actually, I'm going to go ahead and send her those packages and lock that in. So there's a situation right there.
So you have this very interesting story that I'm gonna just go ahead and skip to.
Okay.
It was when you shot this wedding and it turned into the Houston Rocket, on which
Mhm.
you work with the Houston Rockets. What lessons should creators take from that story? And give us a little bit of the story so they'll know what the story sounds like.
Yeah, so a little bit of rundown on that story. I was filming for an MC and my focus was just go to the wedding, film for that MC. But whenever I arrived, the bride and groom, they had, I think, 3 videographers, 2 photographers. So it was a whole team. And then, of course, you got the content creators on their phones, a lot of people. Luckily, I was filming vertically and I got my shot, stayed out of everyone's way. And my client said, yo, D, you have to get that content out as quick as possible if you can. And so in my head, I'm like, yeah, I mean, as soon as I get this edited, I'm done, I'm paid, everything's good. And because it was produced and cut so quickly, the bride, she reached out to my client, he reached out to me. Within 48 hours, I was introduced to her team in Los Angeles. And her husband was a boxer, and she's a ESPN analyst and ex WNBA All Star. Probably, she's really good. Her sisters are in the NBA or the WNBA, and yeah, within a month, she just what she connected to was how quickly it was done, how clean and crisp it was, and within a month later, she came to Houston. There was Nigerian night at the Houston Rockets arena, and I went and filmed that, and that led to more money. And she wasn't even my client, you see. So that's a perfect example of how that first job, go in, do your best, get it done. There's always new people watching, and then boom, it leads to new money. And I just worked with them, I think 2 months ago. Yeah, so they've been with me for the past 3 years, and they don't hit me up every month, but they have specific events. Shanae, she has a foundation, and every year they hit me up.
No, I love that story because it tells creators that, like you said, you need to be working hard on every job. If you're out there in the field, like you said, you never know who's watching. And they tell you that when if you go to any type of class for PA school or any type of film school, they'll tell you, like, make sure you stay on your P's and Q's because you never know who's out there watching and who's going to be your next client. So you definitely want to stay on that. And which leads me to my next question. How do you stay professional in the field without being that over salesy guy that's just running to different clients trying to get sold?
Hmm. That's a good question. Because I've heard of like videographers, photographers, sending a lot of emails, sending like too much follow up. And my best advice for that is just do what you're doing. If you're truly successful, you should already be way too busy to be sending up as many follow-ups as you're sending. But if you are in a position where you don't have much work and you really need the work, I would just hone in on content that you're really good at or hasn't been pushed out yet. I mean, I work with, med spas and corporate companies and weddings, but I also work with models as well. So if I'm kind of slow on one side, then I'll go back and edit that, push that out. Or if I have behind the scenes content, that's very important. Curate that behind the scenes content, edit it, push it out. So then you have all these proof of concepts, whether you're working with corporate, working with med spa, working in sports, whatever it is my answer there.
Okay. All right. So let's get into like scaling and hiring other creators. At what point did you start hiring other creators instead of doing everything yourself?
I was hiring creators. I've hired creators throughout the years, but I would say the most amount of money I've spent was 2025, which is kind of ironic because that was kind of one of the hardest years that I had to pivot. That was the year that I lost two clients at the beginning of the year, but I filled more people's pockets. And I feel like that's a flex that people don't really talk about. That if you can
I
fill the
love that flex.
and so, yeah, I got a retainer med spa client and I needed someone, a social media girl that did the posting. So, she's getting a percentage of that. And I spent a lot of money into paying people for behind the scenes. Any big event that happened last year, specifically, I wanted behind the scenes captured because I know that's going to be super valuable moving forward. So yeah.
Okay. So, getting more into actually scaling, when you look for these creators who are going to be on these different projects with you and you're outsourcing, what do you actually look for? Do you look for their style, or what is it about these creators that points you and you know they're going to be great for the project?
My biggest thing is intention. It's a word that people use a lot, possibly in like, the world of like cooking, culinary, where like, they have the nice plate and everything's specific and everything has to be or art or any kind of medium that shows that things have to be super specific. I have OCD, I believe I have like ADHD or probably both of them. I'm very OCD. If you take a look at my DG Films page, everything's in threes. And people that I work with, they go, "Hey, I really like that you do, the film content, the stills digitally, and then you do video." And a lot of artists that I work with, they go, "Man, you're so like specific about the shots." And I go, "Yeah, it has to be." In my brain, I'm like, "It has to be." Whenever I look into people that I want to bring on, or even it could be a second shooter, it could be a main shooter, it could be an editor, it could be a BTS person. I have to look at their work and I have to see that they have intention behind it. I was going to hire, or I did hire a BTS person last week, and it was between two people. And I clicked on one of their pages, and the first 3 to 5 seconds, the footage was shaky. And I thought to myself, I can't hire this person. It's nothing against them, but if their footage is shaky and they're posting that to social, what are they going to do for BTS for me? And then another person I looked into and they sent me BTS and the shots were so smooth and so clean. I'm like, this is just behind the scenes, but I connected with it and they came out, they were super personable. Yeah, I look for intention. I look at people's work specifically because people don't think about it, but if you're hiring someone under you, they are an extension of you.
That's a
I
bar.
like
That's
that.
a bar. Write
Yep.
that down, everybody. Okay, so actually, I will say, I even on the call when you told me you hired a BTS shooter, that was like one of the things that me and Cody think about it all the time. Like, yo, we need BTS all the time. So, why did you decide to invest in a dedicated BTS shooter? And double question: how has documenting this process helped you grow your business?
The focus of that was I have a good friend of mine. He did, I'm probably going to butcher how much he made, or I probably won't even say how much he made, but he made a lot of money based on all the BTS content he had. And he had a team that editing it and pushing it out. And I just really connected with that. I think aside from getting the content and pushing it to get more money, I think it's super important for to capture it so that you have sort of like a diary of seeing your progress of like what level of shoots were you on. You can see the lighting you were using, you can see the people you were with. And then yeah, whenever it's all edited and looks clean, it adds so much value whenever it goes on social and people see that, especially whenever you're in a slow season and you're like, man, I don't have much coming in right now, but I have all this BTS that just post it, just push it out there because the more that you're consistent with posting that stuff, people are going to think you're always busy.
That's
You're
true.
not lying. You're not lying 'cause it's not like they know where you are at that current moment of time.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask this next question too as well. When we explained Credit Collector to you and then I broke it down, what is one of the biggest things that stood out to you immediately?
The biggest thing that stood out to me was community. I'm huge on community and I've hosted a handful of events last year. So yeah, just seeing the community aspect, I mean, we were on the call and I was seeing the breakdown of everything, bringing the community together, educating the community, helping others. I hope this talk, I mean, I'm just speaking from experience, but I hope
Yeah,
there's little nuggets that people take away from not just our talk today, but other people
yeah.
that you are on the pods with. But yeah, community.
Okay. Okay. No, we like that. We love community over here. I'm glad you said the word community because
That's our biggest word right
that's our biggest
there.
word, and we don't just treat it as a buzzword. That's literally what we're building as a community. That's why we're on here with you and learning some great stuff. So we definitely appreciate that. So why do you think that creators need that B2B business to business space built for creators and not for clients? Like why would they even need an ecosystem such as that?
I think that's important. I think it's important for you guys to build this community so people have in a way kind of like a safe space of like, hey, I know exactly where to go. I can see this versus people can search for hours and hours. You guys are kind of growing a rapport with the community and trust with the community. So I think that's really important. Okay. If a creator feels stuck, I would connect feeling stuck with burnout in a way. And if you are burnt out, you should stop and you should pivot to something else, not like do a completely different job. I would just say, take a step back, and pivot to something. Like if you're doing so much, client work, keep doing it, but maybe take a little step back and do like a little create, like, sketch out a day in the calendar where you do some creative work or you have an off day or you get up in the morning, work half the day and then the rest of the day, you treat yourself, you go out or something. But I would say that because anytime in the past where I felt stuck or burnt out, I knew something needed to change because if you keep doing it, nothing will change. You'll feel even more stuck and more burnt out.
Yeah, I like to say that doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very good.
that's a good bar right there, Cody. That's a good
Yeah.
bar right there. Um,
So
there you go, Cody.
So, what is one habit that's helped you stay consistent over these past 10 years?
I would say just, I mean, as far as on my DGE page, I would just say having my post in threes. I don't know. I mean, this is my passion, and of course, like I'll probably do less of it as I get older, but I'm always gonna kind of oversee these passions. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I say, in my own words, stick to the three P's where you have passion, preparation, and then pivot. You have your
Hmm.
passion where you start, you
Yeah.
prepare for the grind and the job, and then once you realize something's not working, it's time to pivot.
No, I like that. I like that a lot.
That's another great bar. Cody is hot today.
That one of my clients that I'm working with, I'm working with them for the past 7 months, and it goes back to passion. So I have a passion to do it. I have the client and I have the preparation, but then for the pivot, I've been doing it for 7 months, meaning that the content needs to change
Mm.
because and you just do it. You just do that pivot within there and it's gonna be better. And it's like, no, you're gonna fry your brain. And then for me, it's already fried. So I'm already pivoting. How can I make content faster? How can I make content quicker and push it out?
Yeah. Okay. So if we can do a flashback moment, we're going back to the past, not the future. What would you tell your younger? What would you?
Patience and probably, I think I did a decent job at community. I think whenever I was really young, I didn't really have that big of a community. around me. So I'd probably say, get closer with the community and don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yep.
Well, Mr. Dustin, we'll appreciate you for joining this call today. Tell all the viewers where they can find you and tell us what success look like you in the next 5 years.
Yeah, in the next 5 years, man, I don't know, I wanna have more of a team around me,
Yeah.
which would be great, and I just wanna put myself in a position of more overseeing. I wanna help models, I wanna help other creatives make money, and at the same time, I can help out in that way. And then, yeah, as far as, like, socials, my main account, DGE Films on Instagram, and then Texas Videographer on Instagram, and then, yeah, DGE Film on YouTube. But,
Well, guys, there you have it. I know 100% today's call has added a tremendous amount of value to you. Today, we had Mr. Dustin. See you on the next one.
Peace.
thank